Hi everyone, and welcome to Truth Over News with Jeff Carlson and Hans Manke.
Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci once said that socialism will triumph by first capturing the culture, by infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media, by transforming the consciousness of society. While these words were said almost 100 years ago, Gramsci was taking the ideas of Karl Marx and moving them one step further to change society by capturing our cultural institutions. Gramsci recognized that economic uprising in Western countries would not be enough to fundamentally change society. You needed to capture the cultural institutions, something the left has successfully achieved in the last several decades. Schools, universities, courts, churches, and especially the media are playing a pivotal role in fundamentally transforming American society before our eyes. This process greatly accelerated under Obama, a disciple of Saul Alinsky, who was in turn a disciple of Gramsci. Gramsci was a Marxist theorist and a founding member of the Communist Party of Italy. He looked towards Marx's two basic divisions of society, the structure and the superstructure. Marx was primarily focused on the structure or economic base that gave rise to Marx's two classes, the worker and the capital owner. Gramsci recognized Marx's economic base, but unlike Marx, Gramsci focused his attention on the superstructure of institutions and beliefs that surrounds the economic base. Gramsci broke the superstructure into coercive, government and legal, and non-coercive, church, school, and political party elements. Gramsci defined the non-coercive elements as civil society. It's a term we hear often these days. Gramsci saw civil society as an integral part of the state and its most resilient component. Although Gramsci recognized that political society was the most visible element of the state, he was convinced that civil society, through its relationship with and influence on political society, allowed for those civil institutions to ultimately gain dominance over the state. Gramsci's take on civil societies was elaborated on by Joseph Buttigieg, a founding member and president of the International Gramsci Society, and father of our current transportation secretary. He observed that Gramsci's civil society is the arena wherein the ruling class extends and reinforces its power by nonviolent means. Extending his theory on civil society, Gramsci created the theory of cultural hegemony, the way in which governing classes use cultural institutions as a non-coercive means to maintain power.
In Gramsci's view, the governing class, in order to succeed and maintain powers and the status quo, must persuade those being governed to accept and even embrace the social, moral, and political values held by the governing class. This is a subtle but crucial distinction. Gramsci felt that the ruling class's primary method of control came from the non-coercive element. The coercive element was only used as a last resort. Hegemony, Gramsci believed, was derived through society's institutions, the family, church, schools, economy, universities, and the government. These institutions were the bonds that cemented the ruled to the rulers. His answer, his response to cultural hegemony was exceedingly simple. Turn the process back on the governing hierarchy. Change the way institutions work. Change the family. Change the church, schools. Change social norms and beliefs. This would require the introduction of an entirely new set of values and beliefs, a new morality. It would also be slow. Gramsci embraced gradualism, a policy of gradual reform as a means to his end. He recognized that the process must be lengthy, methodical, and persistent. He advocated evolution over revolution, a slow transformation from within Decades later, the leader of the German communist student movement of the 1960s, Rudi Dutschke, perfectly captured Gramsci's approach when he coined the term the long march through the institutions. Gramsci targeted several specific societal areas as a means to promote his quiet revolution. One primary target was schools. Gramsci was opposed to the vocational schools that were springing up in Italy at the time. Instead, he advocated to create a single type of formative school, which would take the child up to the threshold of his choice of job, forming him during this time as a person capable of thinking, studying, and ruling. Gramsci claimed that organizing schools in this way was a means of controlling those who rule. But this liberalized approach to education, practiced by most universities today, also meant that this was a way for those who rule to shape new generations. This educational approach fed into Gramsci's concept of an intellectual. Gramsci noted that all men are intellectuals, but not all men have in society the function of intellectuals. He felt that each societal group gave rise to its own set of organic intellectuals: doctors, professors, clergy, managers, lawyers, and journalists. And it was these, he felt, who were needed in order to promote real change. Gramsci looked towards the United States and noted that a true Marxist uprising of the workers would never be successful there. It would require an undermining of the culture, of the morality and norms of the United States. It would require a changing of the culture by intellectuals and by those in positions of influence. But it would also require something else. Gramsci felt the movement would require a more subversive, directly participating element: community organizers.
Community organizers would later become a driving force implementing Gramsci's ideas in the United States, as would the media. Gramsci's philosophy came to the United States not through his own person. Gramsci died in confinement after being jailed by Mussolini, but rather through the Frankfurt School. George Lukács, a fellow Marxist with similar ideas to Gramsci, had gained fame as a Marxist theorist through the publication of his book, History and Class Consciousness. Lukács' interaction with another Marxist, Felix Weil, led to the founding of the Institute of Social Research, which became known as the Frankfurt School, a Marxism think tank. When Hitler rose to power in 1933, the Institute moved to New York, where it became affiliated with Columbia University in 1935. When World War II reached America, some of the most prominent members ended up working in U.S. government, including Herbert Marcuse, who actually became a key figure in the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA. Others, including Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno, moved to Hollywood. Marcuse enjoyed a true rise to fame in the 1960s with his book, Eros and Civilization. It was Marcuse who coined the phrase, "make love, not war." Theodor Adorno wrote the influential book, The Authoritarian Personality, which argued that anyone who defended traditional culture was a fascist. That last sentence should have particular relevance today. The Frankfurt School employed a technique invented by Horkheimer called critical theory, a social theory oriented toward critiquing and changing society as a whole. The point of the theory is to criticize every traditional social institution and to specifically avoid offering any alternatives as a means to breaking down Western culture. A better alternative way is never to be offered, only criticism. While at Columbia, the Frankfurt School shifted its focus from critical theory directed at German society to critical theory directed at American society. The goal of the Frankfurt School was to move America gradually to the left, using the precepts of Gramsci's counter-hegemony and the practice of critical theory. Indeed, critical race theory, so much in the news of late, is simply the application of critical theory to race.